Hello there, and you're very welcome to another episode of Inside the Game, where we bring you the latest news in the world of GAA. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please get in touch at hashtag Sky Sports GAA. We're delighted to be joined by our regular pundits, Peter Canavan and Kieran Donaghy, and also to complete the dream full forward line, seven-time All-Ireland winner and our special guest this evening, Bernard Brogan. You're all very welcome.
Thanks, Rania.
Bernard, if I can chat with you first of all and ask you, how's the past month been for you?
It's been good. Getting back to a little bit of normality. I'm in the office here. I only live 5 minutes away, so it's a nice retreat for me to get down here. Having two babies at home. So yeah, business is good, and playing a little bit with the club. We were knocked out of championship there, unfortunately, a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, feeling good and positive about the football coming later on in the year. I think it'll give us all a bit of energy coming into Christmas.
But just staying with the club scene, of course, lads, and I mean, what a weekend we've had, and so many great games to savour. We've had penalty shootouts, we've had last-minute winners, shock exits, etc. Bernard, if I start with Dublin, first of all, too, I mean, how has the Dublin Championship been for you this season, and what do you think of the contenders that are left in it?
Yeah, I think it's gone to form in many ways. We were unfortunately knocked out by Raheny a couple of weeks ago, who actually pushed Ballybowden close at the weekend. Ballybowden would have been my favourite coming into the year, but Raheny really pushed them close, went to extra time. But just Ballybowden's form came through in the end. You see there, Ballymun-Kickham's beat a good in the Fina side. Kilmacud have probably been the team of the year so far. They've put up 3 or 4 goals in every game. They put 4 goals against us. The full forward line of Hugh Kenny, Darragh Mullins and Paul Mannion. Obviously we all know Paul Mannion, but there's this fella, Darragh Mullin, looks the real deal. I think he's out with Dublin at the moment. He turned our defence twice for goals, and he got another couple at the weekend. So they're looking good, and they're probably my favourite. And then the last one was Jude's, Kevin McMinnon, looking sharp again. Never gets old, that fella. And he showed he is still at the Jets. It's a beautiful goal going across social media at the moment, where he ran 60 yards and put it in the back of the net. So great to see him in form. And they're always a tricky team to come up against. So it's going to be an interesting last couple of games.
Absolutely. Interesting semi-finals, Ballymun, Kilmacud, Croke, St. Jude's and Ballybowden. But the same can be said for Kerry as well here in Canada. I mean, we're now at semi-final stages as well there. What has stood out for you about the Kerry Championship this season?
I think probably the emergence of St. Brendan's. They've got a good young team, a lot of running, a lot of energy, and they were really good against the Legion last week. I don't think anybody would have seen the scoreline coming that happened. Crokes are Crokes. Crokes are always going to be there. They beat us in the first round there 2 weeks ago, so they're getting ready for another semi-final. But look, East Kerry are the favourites. They're the favourites by the bookies. They got a good scare last week off a very well drilled St. Kieran's team. Had them on the rack, but David Clifford managed to manufacture a goal in the last 4 or 5 minutes to put their noses in front, and they were able to hold on till the end.
Speaking about David Clifford there as well, Kieran, I mean, you mentioned that goal that he scored, but he also was sent off in injury time at that match as well. There's a strong possibility that he won't be available for the semi-final. So what did you make, first of all, of that incident? And also, will East Kerry be able to win without him?
They'll certainly find it harder, but they have got a lot of great forwards up there, including David's brother Paddy. But it is tough on David. You know, he was also sent off last year. You know, look, I think Peter and Bernard and myself can vouch when you're an inside forward, you are targeted, and he's been targeted non-stop, whether it's playing with Kerry or playing with his club Fossa or obviously playing with East Kerry. And you know, the incident was unfortunate. I saw it the last day. You know, he's running down the pitch. They're up a point. He's trying to get on the ball. A man meets him in the 45, kind of grabs him around the neck, and he literally pulls him in and kind of lifts his leg to get him off him. And unfortunately, it's often the reactor that's caught in these situations. And I think probably refs could do with a lot more help from umpires and linesmen on who's actually starting these altercations, because you've got a forward that's running down the field that's trying to get on the ball to kick an insurance score, and he's met by somebody that's not even looking at the ball that plays him off it. And but look, that's par for the course. David's going to have to learn, and he will learn, and he's going to have to learn how to be targeted, like when you're being targeted that much in games.
That's in Kerry, and of course, I suppose one of the games of the weekend, Peter, was in Tyrone, where we saw Killy Clogher and Trillick play out a pulsating match, and Trillick win that game on penalties. It's a brilliant way to win a match, Peter, but gosh, it's heartbreak when you lose it, isn't it?
Absolutely. But before we start talking about Tyrone, Grania, I just have to concur with everything that Kieran said regarding this business of holding on to players off the ball. Clifford's key man in Kerry, and county football will be the same. It's happening all over, whereby key players, it's too easy for them to be taken out of the game. Inevitably, they react or try to free themselves, and they're the ones that ends up getting sent off. It happened to young Hugh in the Dublin Championship last year, very blatant. So I do think linesmen and umpires are going to have to do more to help referees in that regard. Back to the point you made about the Tyrone Championship, it has been one of the best championships in Tyrone that I've certainly witnessed. Of the 12 senior games in the senior championship so far, I think 10 of them have been decided by less than 3 points. 3 of them have went to extra time. One of them decided on penalties, and the quality of football throughout has been exceptional. And what it does do, it augurs well for the inter-county football, because a lot of these lads, a lot of these clubs had a very short pre-season, yet they're up to speed, and the quality of the football is brilliant, and I hope that carries on to the inter-county. Regarding the Trillick and Killy Clogher game that was decided by penalties, the Trillick manager himself, Nigel Seeney, came out after it, and even though they won, he said he's not an advocate. The game shouldn't be decided that way. But I don't know what the boys' opinion on it is, but different golden score, for example, was talked about as being something maybe that should be implemented that's not as sore on players. But what's to say that if you play the golden score, the game mightn't go on. It might go on for another 10, 15, 20 minutes before you get that. And in some cases, players will be out on the pitch nearly 2 hours, which I think is too much to expect. And plus the pressure that would put on referees if there's a golden score, whether or not to give frees. And I think the penalty shootout, it adds excitement to it. Yes, it puts pressure on players, but look, every time we go out to play the game, be it a free taker, look at the pressure that's on him every time he hits a kick. So good goalkeepers don't seem to mind it either. And I still think these games have to be decided on the night, and it's probably still the best way to finish it.
Bernard, would you go along with that? Is it a fair way to end a game?
It's definitely not fair, but it's probably the most natural. And we, as Peter said, there needs to be a solution on the night. There needs to be a winner, because of the amount of games coming thick and fast. I think even playing extra, the golden score would just put too much pressure on players. So the game needs to be called. So I think it's. I never even liked it in soccer watching it. I think in GAA it's so far away from our skill set of the game. It's not a true reflection of what's happened in the 80 minutes before it. But I don't see very many alternatives. Maybe 45s, which would be a nice one to see. It's more of a natural skill set for GAA, but I think it's working so far.
For fans, I suppose, watching it is hugely exciting, but a lot of press are coming out about we need to find an alternative. But is there an alternative if we want to finish games on the night or on the day?
No, I don't think there is. I think that's the way it has to go to be finished. To be honest, Grania, you have to do, if they're trying to really look at what they're doing with the club calendar and the county calendar, having a split year where there's defined number of games. You can't have replay after replay and a different replay here. It just puts back the year. Nobody can plan properly. So, look, I think absolutely finishing it. Look, obviously, it's not nice for the guy that misses the penalty. It's going to be tough. But, there's learning in that too, and how to come back stronger. And absolutely, Bernard is right in a way. It's not a natural skill set, but it is something that maybe needs to be looked at and talked about. And nothing better than finished training, Grania, than an old penalty shootout. We were doing it before there was ever penalty shootouts for the crack. So I think a penalty shootout at the end of trainings might be no harm, and just to get fellas used to kicking it with a bit of pressure. Obviously, nothing can compare with the real thing when you're walking down. I did it last year in a club game, and I was not looking forward to walking down. Was absolutely scared looking at it, standing over it. So not the nicest feeling in the world, but you're just praying to God that it hits the back of the net and that you don't have to deal with the disappointment initially, then getting slagged for a few days afterwards. And it's That's the Kerry goalkeeper there that had a bit of trash talk with me before the penalty. So there's a lot going on when you're trying to stand over it. But it is a tough way to finish it, no doubt, for teams. I wouldn't like to be fancy walking into Hill 16 trying to hit a penalty to keep Kerry's season alive against the Dubs. That wouldn't be a nice feeling, but maybe it might be something we'd see later on in the year.
So Bernard, for you, when you're standing, I think you mentioned that you maybe preferred not to take as many penalties as other players, but when you did have to take a penalty, what was your overriding emotion taking that penalty, be standing over that ball and that goal in front of you?
Yeah, it's a nervous space. It's not a pleasant one to have all eyes on you. I suppose I've lived more of it as a free taker, but the penalty is even more pressure. It's more acute. I never really liked hitting penalties, and I left it to the likes of Dean Rock, Dermot Connolly is a great penalty taker, Mannion, and Tommy Mossy Quinn before him when I started out. So there was better lads ahead of me, thank God. I didn't have to take them for the Dubs because it's a stressful situation. But I know Peter was well to hit them.
There's certainly pressure on you. There's no doubt about that. But look, you need 5 takers. There is penalties in Gaelic games, so and it gives opportunity for somebody, big and maybe a bit awkward, just like Kieran there, the opportunity to be a star. But what a lot of goalkeepers are doing now as well is that they're guessing, they're going one side, and so sometimes you would tell the penalty taker, just make up your mind. You're picking a corner, that's the corner's going to. But if you've watched the 3 or 4 kicks before you, and you've noticed that their goalkeeper is going wholeheartedly to one side or the other, the temptation then is to kick it straight down the middle. So there's a bit of thought that has to go into it as well. And certainly from a neutral, when you're watching other teams in that situation, you feel for them, yes, but it certainly adds to the excitement.
Yeah, well, definitely a lot of nerves standing over that spot, taking that penalty. But we have to take a short break. But do you believe penalties are fair? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Hashtag Sky Sports GAA, do get in touch. After the break, we'll be looking at the art of free taking, and Bernard Brogan will be picking his favourite score in a Dublin jersey of all time. Join us in a bit. Welcome back. We have 3 of the best forwards ever to play the game on the show this evening. So it's only fitting that we're going to look at the art of scoring. So do join the conversation at hashtag Sky Sports GAA. Bernard, when you look at your career and the amount of points and goals that you have scored, we asked you to pick a score that stood out for you and that meant the most to you. So what did you choose?
I picked a score that's not shown that often. It was in the 2011 All-Ireland final against Kerry. Kevin McMenamin had just got that goal that lifted the city, the shutter. And this was coming into the last 2 minutes of the game. You see Dermot Connolly here with it. And I was marking my nemesis, Mark O'Shea, who we've great battles over the years. My old pal, Michael Darmacali, popped it out and off my left foot with 2 minutes to go, put us a point up. It was a big occasion into the hill. Which is amazing. I thought it was the winner until that fella above me on the screen closed his eyes and took a sideline. I took a kick from the sideline that went over, just landed over the bar and put it down to Stephen Cluxton's kick. But that's another clip I'd love to see. Was his eyes open or not?
I was just going to say, Kieran, can you remember were your eyes open or not?
No, my eyes were open for Stephen Cluxton's a few minutes later, I can assure you, wide open, because I was standing right in front of him. And I don't know, did I do the right thing or not? Should I have turned my back or should I have tried to put him off another way? But no, that was, in fairness, Mark and Bernard had massive battles and there was huge respect between the pair. And Mark, in that instance, when Macaulay came off him, kind of went to Macaulay because he felt like he had to, which was the right thing to do for the team. But when Bernard went as a sharpshooter outside, and I think Daniel Bohan was the one that might have dived in your boot. I don't think he could have done much more either, which probably shows you that's why Bernard knows how important that score was for both Dublin, but as in the city itself. That All-Ireland win when they came back and pipped us in that final, it really put belief into that team that they haven't looked back from since. So I can see why Bernard has picked that as the score, as his most memorable score ever.
Bernard, was Mark O'Shea, was that your toughest opponent?
Yeah, well, Dublin Kerry meant a lot to me. My dad playing the 70s against the great Kerry team of the 70s and the battles they had. And my mum been from the Stole, where I spent my holidays last week. to see the relationship that those Dublin Kerry guys have in the 70s and the respect that they have. It was always a special game for me, and Mark O'Shea, who's probably the best cornerback that's ever played the game. I loved pitting myself against the best. No different to Peter. I'm sure that when you're out there, you want to play against the best and see where you're at. And Mark O'Shea got the better of me most times, and one or two I slung over the shoulder and went over the bar. But that's what made it so special. Like the Dublin Kerry, even the relationship we have now, they're great characters and they're great winners, and they're very respectful in defeat as well. And we play sport. We love the game, and we miss it when we finish it. But it's great to meet up and have a pint and tell a story and have a bit of slagging. So I'm sure we'll do that for many a year with Kieran and Mark O'Shea and the rest of the Kerry lads.
I'm sure, lads, you have plenty of questions that you'd like to ask Bernard, but Peter, you'd one in particular that you wanted to ask him.
No, it was, I'm sure you had a few narky thrown cornerbacks chasing you around in the early 2000s as well, Bernard. But point that I would like to ask Bernard was his own style of play. He was very disciplined in that he stayed close to the goal. Now, I know myself, and probably Kieran's the same, as an inside forward, if that ball is not coming in, the temptation is always to get your hands on it, to drift out the field. But for whether it was your own decision or whether it was by Dublin management, you appear to be very disciplined and staying inside. And even that clip that we're after seeing, you had made your run from inside the 13-metre line. So my question, I suppose, Bernard, is that something that you were happy with yourself, or was it very much a management decision that, Bernard, you're staying in whether the ball's going in or not? Maybe you're taking another sweeper out of the game, but you remain very disciplined, and I just would want to know the reason for that.
Yeah, I suppose as an inside forward, I wanted to be as close to goal as possible. I felt I was most dangerous when I got the ball inside 30 yards. So you see some forwards now will chase the ball out and make hard runs out the pitch, whereas I like to get the ball as close to goal as possible. And I got a lot of my scores actually on the loop, like that score where a midfielder, a Fenton or a Jack McCaffrey or a Michael Darmacali was coming through, and I just came on the loop. As Kieran said, Mark O'Shea has to commit to the man who's going through on goal, and it gives an option that if he gets turned, if he gets through for goal, great. But if he gets turned, which happens more often than not, you're on the outside. So I like to be that option. Back when we started, every ball was kick all the way into the full forward line. So I'm sure Kieran, as a full forward, you throw 5 balls into him, you want 2 to stick, and you're happy with that because you'll get 1-1 or you get 2 points off it. So I think that's where the game has evolved, and for an inside forward, it's the joy of it is taken out of it a bit. I love taking on a man. I love the battles, individual battles with myself and Mark O'Shea or other cornerbacks over the years, where you get on top one day and the next day they get on top of you. Whereas now you beat one man and you've 3 defenders coming at you, so it's very difficult to be a true inside forward line. I know that the likes of a Mannion and these players now who have such gas and such engines that they can move all around the pitch and get on the second phase of play. But the traditional full forward line that I would count myself in is there's not much space for them out there anymore, I'd say.
Yeah, well, things have moved on, but we're going to move on as well to our next debate that I want to bring up, because we have 2 of the best free takers ever in the game on the show this evening as well. But also your
Thanks,
top 5 free takers. We asked you. I'm sorry, Kieran as well. Yeah. And Kieran, Peter and Bernard, and Kieran. But let's just look at the top 5 that Bernard picked first of all. And you have Dean Rock, of course, from Dublin, Sean O'Shea, Rory Beggan, Michael Murphy, and Niall Morgan. If we move on then to our next selection, which is from Kieran, he's Dean Rock at number 1 as well. Sean O'Shea, Michael Murphy, Donegal, Cillian O'Connor, Mayo, Conor McManus from Monaghan. And also on Peter's list, well, Dean Rock from Dublin, of course, number 1. Shane Walsh, Galway, Sean O'Shea, Kerry, Cillian O'Connor, Mayo, and Rory Beggan from Monaghan. So interesting, I suppose, Kieran, first of all, when you look at the list, Dean Rock, we expected to be up there high, but there's no Stephen Cluxton. Does that surprise you? How difficult was it to pick the top 5, first of all, for you?
Well, it's difficult, but I think the fact that Stephen probably, has the luxury of the free takers that Dublin have. He hasn't had to take them in a while, so he's probably not to the forefront of our thought process in this. For me, it's the free takers off the ground, and it's interesting because both Peter and Bernard would have taken a lot of frees off their hands. And my first three were three fellas that put it on the ground. I always felt a bit more secure with someone putting it on the ground. I just think the variables are reduced in what can go wrong. But obviously that might be something that the boys would disagree with. But, the quality of free takers, I think on every guy's list, the quality of free takers that we have playing the game now is exceptional. And, look, Dean Rock is number one for a reason because his percentage is through the roof. I think he missed 4 kicks last year, maybe 4 free kicks last year, and 2 of them were against Kerry in the final, and one of them was out in the sideline in the 78th minute or something. So the percentages these guys are kicking off now is through the roof.
Exactly, and just going on with that point there that Kieran's made, Peter, the hands overtaking it off the ground, why did you choose taking out the hands?
Just totally depended on the circumstances at the time. The breeze, what way the breeze was blowing. If it was against the breeze, I always found it was much easier kicking it off the ground. The surface on which you're kicking, not only from your stand foot point of view, but the grass, and the difference between the old Croke Park and the new Croke Park. And I, of course, along with Kieran, I'm sure Bernard played in it too. The old Croke Park, you could have threw the ball anywhere on the surface. It was a wee bit more up and down, and there seemed to be more grass on it, whereas now Croke Park is so flat and there's very little grass on it. I found it much more difficult to kick it from the ground, and hence I would have elected to kick out of my hands. So everybody is different, and it's just what you are comfortable with at that time. But the kicking now, Grania, streets ahead of when it was 10, 15 years ago. Last year Rory Began kicked, I think, one from 65 metres sailing over the bar. Sidelines now, Shane Waltz, the quality right, left foot, what he can do, and Dean Rock has taken it to completely to a new level. So the standard now, and it's a reflection of the time and effort players spend at it, because I don't care who you are, you have to, if you're the free taker, you have to spend serious time getting your technique and all right, and that's very evident from the stats that we see from intercounty players now.
Mm-hmm. Bernard, we're going to get your take on this in a couple of minutes' time, but the number one on all your list was, of course, Dean Rock, and Kieran, you had a chance to catch up with him, so let's just take a look at this.
The routine and the process stays the same for every free kick.
The whistle
really
goes. What are you thinking? Are you kind of like, yes, free, well, I get the hero kick?
Well, obviously, yeah, well, you do slightly think like that, but obviously you're thinking about, in terms, okay, whereabouts is the ball on the pitch, what way is the wind blowing, so you've kind of some sort of idea before you step up to it.
Okay.
And then obviously I would decide then, once I have the ball in my hands, whether I'm going to kick it out of my hands or off the ground. And that's
talk us through that. Is that due to wind conditions? What puts it on the floor versus
there's lots of variables, obviously, and it comes down to practice as well. Kind of areas of the pitch, right, you'd be more comfortable kicking out of your hands and off the ground, but obviously it is very kind of wind dependent and stuff like that, conditions dependent. So, and once I do decide on that, if it's off the ground, it's literally just putting the ball back, and obviously you've got a point then in the distance where you want to kind of kick the ball. So I would never really aim outside the post. It would all be kind of at the post or inside. The post, very rarely, and then because then you just kind of focus on a really good strike, and because that's the idea. And
have you an amount of steps back?
It changes on areas of the pitch. If it was a position from this, it would be predominantly be 6 back, and it'd be 2 and a little shimmy to the 2 and a bit to the side.
Yeah, easy peasy, just like that.
Yeah, well, he's the best for a reason at number one of the 3 lads' choice. And you can check out the full feature with Kieran and Dean on Sky Sports YouTube and on demand. Bernard, I was just going to get a quick reaction to you about you taking your free taking abilities. I mean, you've obviously worked with Dean as well. So from when you started off taking frees to where Dean has come on to it now, tell me a little bit about the difference that you have seen.
Yeah, I think the key, when I was playing, I had Stephen Cluxon that was able to take the 45s and the longer kicks. So we were if a Fenton, though I wasn't comfortable with it, I didn't feel it was an 80% shot. I would have Stephen take, you know, so I had that luxury. Whereas I think where Dean comes to his fore is that 45s are so important in a game. When a game is won by a point or two, a kick of a ball, if you can convert your 45s, you have such a good chance of winning the game. And that's what Dean has brought to the fore. Been able to kick, obviously, from 21 yards out, but then also those big kicks. And why I picked the likes of Beggan and Morgan in my 5 is that they're the guys that if it was a clutch moment in a game, you're coming down the stretch and there's a couple of minutes left and you have a big kick like Cluxon in 2011, they're the type of guys you want on the ball. So that's why I picked those guys, and I think that Dean has just brought it to a new level. And you hear there from his commentary about different parts of the pitch. If he's out on the sharp right hand side where the angle is tight, he won't kick it off the ground because that off the ground might curl too much, where he'll kick it out of his hands. You know, so it's all about what part of the pitch and all the practice that they've done. He knows everywhere, every blade of grass in Croke Park and all his training pitches. So it takes hours and hours and thousands of kicks to get that quality.
Okay, well, thanks, lads, for your thoughts here this evening. Unfortunately, time has gone against it, but my thanks once more to Kieran, Peter and Bernard for being with us on the programme. We will, of course, be hearing from them as the season goes ahead and we get even closer to the inter-county action. Bernard, you have a book coming out soon, I think. We wish you the very best of luck with that.
Thank you.
Remember, you can watch this show back on Sky Sports YouTube and on Sky Sports On Demand. And we'll be back next Wednesday with our hurling show. JJ Delaney, Antrim star Neil McManus and Cork's all-time top scorer Patrick Horgan will be with us. Hope you can join us for that. But until then, take care and bye.
Sky Sports. Feel it all.